You know that one person in the office who knows where every missing file is, which manager cries in their car at lunch, and how to unjam the printer without summoning Satan. That was me. Rachel Thomas. 34, black, 6'1" with flats, and the unofficial backbone of Elbridge Mutual Insurance for 7 straight years. I wasn't just good at my job, I was the job. When corporate rolled out a new filing system, I figured it out before the IT guy could log in. When Deb in payroll accidentally mailed everyone's tax forms to the wrong addresses, I drafted the apology letters, stuffed the envelopes, and personally drove them to the post office. 7 years of doing the work nobody wanted to do, smiling through being called girl by 60-year-old men who still used AOL email accounts, and pretending not to hear when Sharon, we'll get to her, called me her right hand, like I was a disembodied limb instead of a human being with ambition. I endured it all because I was playing the long game. Then came the job posting. Operations Department Manager. $88,000 a year. Benefits with actual dental. A private office. Title power. It wasn't just a promotion, it was a seat at the table. Finally, let me paint the picture. I'd trained 6 different people who now outranked me. I'd run 2 departments during maternity leaves. I was a black woman in a company that treated diversity like a tax write-off. I knew I was more qualified than half the VPs in the building. But still, I did everything by the book. Polished resume. Recommendation letters from 2 execs, one of whom I saved from a sexual harassment lawsuit by intercepting an extremely NSFW email and accidentally deleting it. I even dry cleaned my damn interview blazer. I felt something I hadn't in a long time, hope. The interview went great, smooth, confident. I told myself not to get too attached. But deep down, I let myself believe. I imagined clearing off the junk from that corner desk and replacing it with my succulents. Maybe I'd even buy one of those glass water bottles that scream, I make $90,000 and take bar classes. Then Sharon called me into her office. Sharon, my direct supervisor, was the kind of woman who wore turtlenecks in July and said, I'm not racist, I just don't see color, while simultaneously referring to every black woman in the office as sassy. She was pushing 60, Botox to hell, and saw the entire department like it was her kingdom. She folded her hands on the desk like a woman about to order an execution. Rachel, she said, all teeth. We've decided to go in a different direction. I blinked. Excuse me. We've selected someone with a fresh, dynamic perspective. I waited. And then she said it. Brianna will be stepping in. Brianna, 26. Just finished her master's in communications from somewhere. Her only work experience prior to this job was managing a boutique in Connecticut and doing branding for a failed skincare startup her cousin ran out of his garage. Guess who trained her when she joined? Me. She once asked me what a PDF was. She forwarded a locked Excel sheet and asked me to translate it. And now? She was my boss. Sharon smiled like she'd handed me a slice of birthday cake. We'll need your help onboarding her. I know you'll be a team player. I smiled back. And in that moment, I made a decision. If they thought I was going to keep holding this place together while they handed my future to a nepotism project with lip filler and a LinkedIn bio that read like an Instagram caption, they had another thing coming. After I left Sharon's office, I went straight to the break room. I wasn't crying. I don't cry at work. But I did stare into the vending machine for a solid 5 minutes, trying to remember how to blink. It was like my brain had blue screened. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like they were laughing at me, and somewhere in the back of my mind, I swear I heard the ghost of my grandmother mutter, "You gonna let them do like that, baby?" I bought a Snickers. Because if I was gonna be insulted, I might as well have peanuts and nougat in my mouth while it happened. Over the next few days, Brianna floated into the department like a well-moisturized curse. High ponytail. clicky heels. That sing-songy voice people only use with toddlers and service dogs. She walked past me on her first morning and chirped, "Hey, Rachel. So excited to collaborate with you, like we were co-stars in a Hallmark Christmas movie and not the corporate reenactment of Judas and the Black Messiah." She sat in what used to be Sharon's office, legs crossed like a little empress, and immediately asked me to just kind of walk her through everything. No schedule, no structure, just vibes and an iced chai latte. Her desktop background was a quote in pink cursive that read, "Your vibe attracts your tribe." I wanted to throw my monitor out the window. Let me be clear. I'm not mad that Brianna is young. I'm not mad that she's white. I'm mad that she was handed a job she wasn't qualified for by a woman who called me essential for 7 years and then booted me off the ladder the second it actually mattered. This wasn't about merit. This was about access and whose face they wanted in the photos on the website. Still, I trained her. I trained her like a damn pro. Every morning, I printed out documents she should have known how to pull herself. Every afternoon, I explained the difference between actual revenue and projected revenue like I was tutoring a failing sophomore. I bit my tongue when she scheduled a department meeting and forgot to invite half the department. I smiled when she called me her work mom in front of the regional director. I even laughed when she said the budget felt really cancer-y and then clarified she meant chaotic, not like, terminal illness. Meanwhile, Sharon watched from her perch 2 floors up, sipping her herbal tea and sending me chirpy, "Appreciate you" emails like we were all besties in the Elbridge Mutual Sorority. But here's what they didn't know. I was documenting everything. Every time Brianna forwarded sensitive documents to her personal Gmail so she could work remotely on her boyfriend's boat, I saved a copy. Every time she marked herself in a meeting but I saw her Instagram story from Sephora, I took a screenshot. I noted every screw-up, every policy violation, every idiotic thing that left her mouth and floated across the office like an HR lawsuit waiting to happen. You don't spend 7 years in the shadows without learning how to observe. I've been invisible to them for so long, they forgot I could see everything. So I became what they always wanted me to be: helpful, quiet, accommodating. I made her look good, because the higher they lifted her, the harder she'd fall when I cut the rope. By week 3 of operation, Train My Replacement, I had a folder on my personal Google Drive called Just In Case. Harmless title. Could have been recipes, vacation plans, inspirational quotes. But inside? Inside was hell in alphabetical order. I had subfolders: Brianna, Communications, Sharon, Compliance, Meeting Recordings, and my personal favorite, Lies with Receipts. I'm not talking vague suspicions either. I had screenshots, PDFs, timestamped Slack logs, forwarded emails, and one glorious voice memo where Brianna admitted she didn't read the employee handbook because, and I quote, "Legalese makes me itchy." The cherry on top? Our company had a strict confidentiality clause about client data. Sharon drilled it into us during training. You do not, under any circumstances, send anything with customer info outside the secure network. Guess who forwarded a full client audit to her personal email so she could show it to her friend who's super into fintech? Guess who CC'd her roommate, who isn't even an employee because he's really smart with numbers and could maybe help understand it? Guess who saved it all, marked the days, and made a running list in a spreadsheet labeled policy violations, untouched? Me. Rachel. The human doormat who finally decided to buy herself some goddamn steel toes. Now here's the thing. I didn't plan to use it immediately. This wasn't about a tantrum. It wasn't about revenge as an impulse. This was insurance. Because people like Sharon don't just sideline you. They erase you. Quietly. With memos and restructuring and vague performance reviews that say, not leadership material. I'd seen it happen to other women, mostly black, some older, all smart enough to threaten the delicate ecosystem of fragile egos in upper management. I knew it was coming. So I played dumb, smiled, took my lunch breaks in the stairwell with my Kindle and pretended not to hear Brianna tell someone on a call that she was finally bringing some real innovation to the department. Innovation that looked suspiciously like my color-coded document tracking system I'd been using since Obama was president. Around this time, Brianna made the bold decision to schedule an all-hands meeting without checking anyone's availability. It conflicted with 3 project deadlines, a quarterly audit, and Marcy's 20th work anniversary, and you don't screw with Marcy's party. Marcy once threatened to beat a man with a stapler over decaf. The meeting was a train wreck. Brianna tried to give a slideshow presentation, but forgot to plug in her laptop. Then she said we'll pivot organically and started freeballing strategy buzzwords like a human word cloud. Let's synergize the leverage points across our digital touchpoints. Are we bandwidthing with frictionless transparency? We need to circle back with, a sense of vertical motion. I wrote every single phrase down, word for word, with timestamps. People started looking at me differently after that. A couple whispered, "You good?" with that sympathetic expression you give someone at a funeral who still hasn't processed the loss. I nodded and kept smiling. Inside, I was preparing a war chest. One that would flip the office upside down and leave Sharon clutching her pearls in HR, swearing she had no idea. One that would drag the golden girl back to the realm of mortals and then bury her there. Because if they thought I was just going to roll over while they passed me over, watched me carry this company for 7 years, and called it team spirit, they forgot who taught Brianna everything she knows. I wish I could say the worst thing Brianna did in her first month as manager was the client data breach, or the time she told our Muslim coworker that fasting seems like a great detox idea. But no, the worst thing? She invited the entire department to a bottomless mimosa brunch on a Sunday and didn't include me. And before anyone defends her with maybe it was just a casual hangout, let me explain. She sent the invite via work email. She titled the calendar event Team Building Brunch, Brianna's Treat, and added a goddamn agenda. It included icebreakers and something called goal vision boarding. I found out because the intern, bless her chaotic little heart, asked me what resilient synergy meant, which was the theme of the brunch. I smiled, sipped my coffee, and said, "It means your boss likes words she doesn't understand." The brunch was at a rooftop spot downtown. You know the type, $19 pancakes with edible flowers and drinks named after astrological signs. They took pictures. They posted them. Our department's group chat blew up with "had so much fun today" and boomerang clips of champagne flutes clinking against a pink neon sign that said Boss Babe Energy. Not a single mention of me. Not one. The next morning, Brianna popped by my desk with a bag of mini croissants and that same practice smile she always wore when she was about to say something especially offensive. "Hey, Rachel," she chirped. "We missed you yesterday." Did the invite not go through? It didn't. I knew it didn't. My inbox is organized with color-coded folders and filters that could make the Pentagon blush. I don't miss invites. But I also don't let passive-aggressive blondes bait me before I've had my second cup of coffee. I looked her dead in the eye and said, "Oh, I must have missed it. I spent Sunday reading up on data compliance protocols. Just brushing up, in case any unexpected issues come up." She blinked. Just for a moment. Just long enough for her face to twitch like a glitching sim. Then she recovered with a laugh that didn't quite reach her eyes and said, "Ugh, you're such a workaholic. That's why we need more balance in this department, right?" I nodded. Right. Because I'd already sent an anonymous tip to our internal IT security lead about suspicious forwarding activity. No accusations, just a polite suggestion to double-check how external emails were being logged. Let's just say, flags were starting to rise. Later that week, I overheard Sharon chewing out Brianna behind her closed office door, not knowing the vent above carried sound straight into the ladies' room. I sat in the stall like a church mouse and listened to Sharon hiss, "You cannot send client data over Gmail, Brianna. That is a federal violation under HIPAA. Do you want to be the reason we get audited?" Brianna sniffled. "It's just easier on my phone." Of course it is. That same day, HR sent out a mandatory meeting invite labeled Departmental Cybersecurity Refresher, with Brianna listed as the required attendee. She tried to laugh it off in the group chat. "Ugh, they're making me sit through this just because I'm new, lol." Nobody responded. They were starting to notice. The croissants on my desk sat untouched. I watched them all day, like little flaky metaphors for the fake sweetness I'd been fed for years. But I wasn't bitter. I was patient. Because you don't need to shout when the avalanche is already moving. 3 days after the cybersecurity refresher, which Brianna described as so boring, like who even reads laws, things started unraveling. Not dramatically. Not with an explosion. Just little cracks, spidering across the foundation like quiet earthquakes. It started with Marcy. Marcy has been at Elbridge Mutual since the Reagan administration. She's the kind of woman who alphabetizes her cat's vaccination records and once threatened to file a hostile work environment claim over Susan's perfume. You don't cross Marcy. Ever. And Brianna? Brianna tried to assign her a new filing system without asking. I watched from my desk as Marcy slowly rotated her chair, raised one drawn-on eyebrow, and said in a voice sharp enough to peel paint, "If I wanted to take orders from toddlers, I'd babysit my niece's twins. And they're smarter than you." I choked on my coffee. That was the first time I laughed in weeks. Word spread fast. Even Rick in accounting, who has the emotional depth of a potato, popped his head into my cubicle like, "Yo, did Marcy just assassinate the manager?" But Brianna didn't get it. She thought it was a personality clash. "She's just, like, super type A," she told Sharon. "I'll smooth it over." Her idea of smoothing it over was buying Marcy a novelty mug that said Queen of Paperwork in glitter font and putting it on her desk with a bow. Marcy left it in the bathroom. So now the troops were restless. Quietly. Carefully. Because no one wanted to be labeled insubordinate. But even the people who used to suck up for their lives started side-eyeing Brianna's leadership. And every time she opened her mouth, she fed them new material. Can someone explain what net revenue means? I keep mixing it up with net worth. I'm trying to do this report, but Excel's being sexist again. I just feel like performance reviews should focus more on, like, vibes and morale than metrics, you know? One afternoon, she wandered into my cubicle with an iced matcha and said, "Rachel, can you do that thing you do with the color blocks? The spreadsheet vibe you did for Sharon's quarterly report." I paused. "You mean a pivot table?" She snapped her fingers. "Yes, that. Pivot that vibe." I said sure. Then saved 2 versions, the clean one for her and the annotated one for my shadow files, with a timestamp and a note that read, "Delegated basic management responsibility," without understanding the terminology. That weekend, I got a text from Kelly, one of the project coordinators. It was a screenshot of Brianna's public Instagram story. She was drinking wine on a boat. With the caption, "When you close a deal before noon, you deserve the whole damn ocean." Problem was, the deal she was referencing hadn't even started. It had been postponed due to client compliance issues caused by her earlier email mishap. I checked the metadata on the photo. Same day, she logged 6 billable hours to that client. From her boat. With no Wi-Fi. That was the moment I decided, it's time. This wasn't just a bad manager anymore. This was a liability. I wasn't going down with this ship. I'd spent 7 years patching leaks and steering people to safety while Sharon and her golden girl rearranged the deck chairs. They wanted a new direction? Fine. I was about to give them a course correction straight into hell. I opened my shadow files, polished them, added notes, created a chronological index with cross-references, made it idiot-proof for anyone who'd read it. Then I drafted an anonymous email. To HR, CC'd to compliance, VCC'd to the legal office. Subject line, pattern of misconduct, internal review requested. No threats, no emotions, just cold, clean, organized facts. And one final line at the bottom. You've overlooked the wrong person for the last time. I didn't sleep the night I sent the email. I laid in bed staring at the ceiling fan, listening to its uneven click like a countdown. There's a particular kind of stillness that settles when you know you've done something irreversible. No sirens. No flappings. Just the knowledge that somewhere inside an HR inbox, a slow detonation had begun. To the untrained eye, Monday morning looked like any other. The coffee was burnt. The elevator took forever. Sharon's parking spot was still illegally close to the door because rules, in her mind, were just gentle suggestions. But when I walked past the reception desk, I noticed something different. HR was on our floor. Now, HR doesn't just show up at Elbridge unless someone's been caught watching porn on their lunch break again. It's happened twice. But there they were, Meredith and Frank, the senior HR duo, walking down the hallway with faces so tight they looked vacuum-sealed. Brianna didn't notice. She was in the break room telling someone how glass ceilings are like, totally just in your head. Meanwhile, I sat at my desk, updated my Google Drive backup for the shadow files, and sipped my coffee like I hadn't just pulled the pin on a corporate grenade. At 10:37 a.m., the first alert hit. All department managers, mandatory meeting, room 3B, 11 a.m. 5 minutes later, Sharon sent a group-wide Slack message that read, "Hey everyone, HR will be joining us today for a quick policy refresher. Don't stress. Just a touch base, smiley face." There are few things more terrifying than a white woman using a smiley face to mask complete internal collapse. Sharon's mask was cracking. At 11 o'clock sharp, Brianna strutted into the meeting room with her usual faux confidence. She wore a coral blazer and heels too high for her common sense. Sharon followed, tight-lipped and silent. Meredith from HR closed the door behind them like she was sealing a crime scene. I wasn't in that meeting, but I know people, and people talk, especially after they've been shaken. Apparently, HR opened with a slideshow titled Proper Handling of Sensitive Client Data, a refresher course. But they didn't use stock examples. No, they used real, recent ones. Client files forwarded to Gmail. Insecure passwords. Work from home hours logged during boat party weekends. And while no names were said aloud, everyone knew. Brianna's face, I was told, slowly slid from bored confusion to wide-eyed panic. She apparently kept glancing at Sharon, who looked straight ahead like she could hold back a hurricane with sheer denial. Then came the second wave, an announcement that a formal investigation was underway into administrative irregularities and potential breaches of compliance protocol. They didn't say whose department, but it was obvious. Brianna asked a question, something weak, like, will this affect performance reviews? And Frank from HR, who usually speaks like a cartoon owl, said, it depends on what we find, Brianna. Just Brianna. He said her name. Out loud. In front of everyone. The meeting ended early. By lunch, Brianna's Instagram had gone private. Sharon hadn't left her office. And I had 23 unread Slack messages, all variations of, did you know about this? WTF is happening, and from Marcy. Goddamn. You smell smoke. I didn't respond. I just took my lunch to the rooftop and ate my turkey sandwich in peace, legs crossed, letting the sun hit my face for the first time in months. The building below me buzzed with anxiety. And I was finally still. Because bombs don't always explode. Sometimes they hum before they drop. The next 48 hours were beautiful chaos. You know that feeling when you open a soda that someone's been shaking for 5 minutes? That fizzy violence trying to burst out of the seams? That was the office. Except instead of Diet Coke, it was fear and speculation, bubbling in every conversation, every copy room whisper, every "Hey, can we talk?" in the hallway. Brianna didn't strut anymore. She walked fast and low, like a raccoon caught stealing trash. Her blowouts? Gone. Messy bun. No lip gloss. And that chirpy, upbeat voice she loved so much had deflated into this weird husky whisper, like she was trying not to get caught by God. Sharon, meanwhile, looked like she was being haunted by the ghost of a decision she should have never made. She'd stopped wearing lipstick. Her heels were lower. And every time HR so much as sneezed in her direction, she flinched like someone had fired a starting pistol. But the best part? Oh, honey. Brianna started trying to be my friend. First it was small things. She brought me coffee. Soy vanilla latte, right? I remembered. I took it, smiled, set it aside, and didn't touch it. I don't drink anything handed to me by people who once forgot to CC me on 5 client emails in a row. Then came the compliments. You're honestly so efficient. I don't know how you keep it all together. I could never do what you do. You mean like run the department you now claim to manage? I nodded politely and said, that's okay. Not everyone can. She blinked like she'd just been slapped with a feather dipped in truth. Then she got bold. She hovered by my desk like a mall kiosk worker, voice dropped to this fake, conspiratorial tone. I think HR might be overreacting. I mean, it's just a couple emails, right? You don't think this is, like, that serious, do you? Now, I'd spend a week practicing what I'd say if this moment came. But instead of the prepared speech, I just tilted my head, met her eyes, and said, well, depends what else they find. And walked off. I found out later she cried in the bathroom. Twice. That same afternoon, HR started pulling people for one-on-one interviews. Quietly, discreetly. But we noticed. Because this office is full of gossips with nothing better to do than chart foot traffic like military intelligence. Then, a Slack ping. Rachel, do you have 15 minutes to meet with HR? Meredith. Sure I did. I walked into that conference room like I wasn't the one who'd lit the fire in the first place. Meredith smiled that HR smile, the one that says we're here for a conversation that might get someone fired. She gestured to the chair. Thank you for coming in. I nodded, calm, collected, professional. We just wanted to ask a few questions about your experience working under Brianna and whether you've noticed any irregularities. I paused, folded my hands, and then? Then I took a breath and said, I've kept a detailed record of my work with Brianna since her hiring. I'd be happy to provide that documentation to assist your investigation. Meredith blinked. You have records? I smiled. Not smug. Not vindictive. Just tired. Just done. Yes, I said. 7 years in this company has taught me the value of protecting yourself when no one else will. She asked if I'd email them over. I said I'd have it uploaded by end of day. But I already had the folder zipped, labeled, and ready to go. Time-stamped. Indexed. Cross-referenced. Beautiful. As I stood to leave, I added, oh, and I'd also like to schedule an appointment with compliance. There are some additional concerns involving Sharon's role in all this. Meredith's pen stopped moving. You're coming forward about Sharon too? Of course, I said. This wasn't just negligence. It was systemic. Because the fire was never just about Brianna. She was the match. Sharon was the one holding the gasoline. 2 days after I submitted the shadow files to HR and compliance, Sharon stopped showing up to work. No warning. No email. Just gone. Her office stayed locked. Her mug with the weird motivational quote, "Decide, commit, succeed," sat on her desk like a tombstone. The department buzzed with theories. Medical leave? Suspension? Did she, flee the country? I didn't say a word. I just kept doing my job, calmly, quietly, efficiently, while the air around me got thicker with dread. The kind of tension that clings to your skin, like a storm is coming but no one will say the word lightning. Brianna, though? She was unraveling like a loose hem caught in a jet engine. One morning she came in late, sunglasses on indoors, Starbucks in one hand, and told our receptionist she was dealing with a really bad psychic energy week. By noon, she was crying in the bathroom again, this time loud enough that even facilities left her alone. Then came the meeting. Upper management called an emergency all staff for our floor. We shuffled into the main conference room where the VP of HR, not Meredith, but her boss's boss, stood at the head of the table with a corporate smile so wide it looked painful. As part of our commitment to transparency, she began, we're launching an internal audit of departmental leadership and data security practices. Translation: someone major screwed up, and we have receipts. The VP continued, we want to thank those who've come forward with documentation. Your vigilance reflects our company values. I didn't blink, didn't smirk, just took notes. Thoroughly, like always. Then she dropped the bomb. Effective immediately, Sharon Whitmore is no longer employed by Elbridge Mutual. There were gasps. One audible, holy shit. The VP smiled tighter. We wish her well in her future endeavors. They always say that when someone's been fired so hard their name is erased from the company directory. As for Brianna? Oh, baby. They didn't fire her. They demoted her. She lost the manager title. Lost the office. They moved her into an open desk cluster right next to the printers, where the toner smells like death and you hear every passive-aggressive paper jam curse in stereo. Official reason? Realignment of department structure due to shifting priorities. But everyone knew. Even she knew. She came up to me the next day, eyes rimmed red, voice small. Rachel, can we talk? I didn't look up from my screen. Sure. About work. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I never wanted you to get hurt. I finally turned to her. I didn't get hurt, Brianna. I got passed over. There's a difference. She stared at me like I'd grown horns. But I didn't know. Sharon didn't tell me. You didn't ask. Silence. She started to say something else, but I raised a hand. Don't explain. Just learn. And next time someone hands you power, maybe ask yourself if you earned it or if someone else already did the work for you. That afternoon, I got a call from a woman named Lauren Crandall, Director of Operations at Lansing and Wilkes, a rival firm I'd interviewed with years ago. We heard about the recent shifts at Elbridge, she said. Your name came up more than once. Would you be open to a leadership opportunity with us? Would I? Let's just say, I was done making queens. It was time to wear the crown myself. I signed the offer letter that Friday. Director of Operations, Lansing and Wilkes. $112,000 starting. Full benefits. Remote Fridays. 3 weeks PTO, plus bonuses. But more than any of that, more than the salary or the title or the view from the 19th floor, what sold me was the phrase buried in the welcome email. We look forward to your leadership. Leadership. Not support. Not background. Not office mom. Leadership. When I told Elbridge I was leaving, I was professional. No drama. Just a 2-sentence resignation email. I didn't CC Brianna. Didn't even look her way when I printed it and hand-delivered it to HR. But the day I left? That was different. My last morning, I came in early, as I always had, and took one final walk around the department. I nodded to Marcy, who winked at me and handed me a goodbye card she'd made herself. I passed the break room, where someone had set out a sheet cake with my name misspelled. Rachel, which I think was Brianna's passive-aggressive final jab. As I packed my things, a few people stopped by to shake my hand, whisper their congratulations, and tell me quietly, always quietly, how they'd rooted for me for years. How they'd seen what Sharon did. What Brianna got away with. And how watching it all finally burn down had felt like justice, slow-cooked and served cold. One of the IT guys, Harold, sweet and socially awkward, handed me a flash drive with a raised eyebrow. "Not that you'd ever need this," he said, "but if anyone ever tells a different version of what happened, this has the server logs. Backed up. Time-stamped." I didn't ask how he knew. I just nodded. Tucked it into my purse. It's always good to keep the receipts. Brianna hovered in the hallway as I packed the last of my things. She looked smaller. Not physically, but shrunken. Like a balloon 2 days after a party. She opened her mouth once, closed it, then tried again. "Rachel, I really am sorry." I stood, slipped on my coat, looked her in the eye. "I hope you are." She blinked. "Are what?" "Sorry. I hope you are sorry. Because that's the only way you'll ever stop being dangerous." Her eyes welled up, but I didn't wait for tears. I picked up my box and walked out the door. Not a dramatic exit. No middle fingers. No slammed doors. Just the soft click of heels on tile. I didn't cry until I got home. Not because I was sad, but because my body finally exhaled. After 7 years of shrinking myself to fit inside someone else's hierarchy, I was finally too big to stay small. That night, I poured a glass of wine, logged onto the company portal at Lansing, and saw my name under Leadership Contacts. Rachel Thomas, Director of Operations. Below it, a note from Lauren. "Your team starts next week. Build something better." So I did. And you know what? 3 months later, guess who applied for a temp coordinator position at Lansing? Brianna. The resume came across my desk like a ghost in stilettos. Did I interview her? No. I passed it to our admin team with a sticky note. "Do not proceed. Candidate does not meet expectations." And for once in my life, I didn't feel petty. I felt free. 6 months later, I sat in my new office, real wood desk, floor-to-ceiling windows, a nameplate with my title etched in brass, watching the city pulse beneath me. It was after hours. Most of the building was dark, quiet. Except for my office, where Miles Davis hummed through my speakers and a candle flickered on the shelf behind me, cedar and smoke, my favorite scent. I was reviewing quarterly numbers when a familiar name popped into my inbox. Brianna Simmons. Subject line: Professional reference request. I stared at it for a full minute, not even blinking. Then I laughed. Out loud. A long, surprised laugh that startled me with how light it felt. She'd attached a note. "Hi, Rachel. I know our time at Elbridge didn't go how either of us probably expected. I've learned a lot since then, and I'm trying to start fresh. I've applied to a support role at another firm, and they asked for a supervisor or mentor reference. I thought of you because you really did teach me more than anyone else. I'd be grateful if you'd consider providing a professional reference." Brianna. I didn't respond. I didn't delete it either. Instead, I opened a new tab and wrote something else entirely. A memo to my team. All 9 of them, for women, 2 men, 3 non-binary folks. All brilliant. Most under 35. All paid well, respected, and seen. The memo was simple. Just a reminder of what our team stood for. No overdone mission statement. No buzzwords. We build systems that support people, not the other way around. No one gets overlooked. No one gets stepped on to lift someone else. Do the work. Share the credit. Don't mistake kindness for weakness. I hit send. Sat back. That night, walking home, the air smelled like rain, but the sky stayed clear. I passed a restaurant where Elbridge folks used to host their smug little Friday happy hours. I stopped at the window. Through the glass, I saw a familiar profile. Sharon. She was sitting alone. No entourage, no clipboard, no junior employees nodding eagerly at her every word. Just a woman in her 60s, tapping her wine glass against her ring, staring at nothing. She looked like someone who used to run the show and didn't quite know how to live off stage. She didn't see me, and I didn't wave. Because revenge? Revenge isn't always screaming. It's not slamming doors or plotting from a darkened room. Sometimes revenge is quieter. Sometimes it's walking past the people who once had power over you, knowing they can't touch you now. Sometimes it's getting to choose whose career rises and who stops at your desk. And sometimes revenge is just a full inbox, an office with your name on it, and a team that knows exactly who built the table they're sitting at. Not Brianna. Not Sharon. Me. Rachel Thomas, Director of Operations. And finally, I'm where I belong.